Hello there, Inky Fingers here from Inky Fingers Architectural Art. Well, today I'm going to be looking at perspective, something that unfortunately we have to know about if we're going to draw urban art or any type of architecture. So if you don't know about it and you draw a building without the knowledge of perspective, then I think your drawing would look a little bit strange. So it is that important. But of course, perspective doesn't have to be that complicated. There's the usual way to do it, and then there's the way I do it, as ever. So join me in this video tutorial of how to draw perspective. In art, there are two kinds of perspective. Both are equally as important, but each perspective does a different job. Now first we have linear perspective and we have aerial perspective. Now aerial perspective is an atmospheric phenomenon. This is why if you look at something in the distance, like for example some hills, the hills in the distance, they look grey. They could be green, they could be brown, in reality could have grass on them, but we see them as a grey or a bluey grey. And that's because you're looking through a lot of atmosphere, a lot of dirt in the atmosphere, a lot of moisture in the atmosphere, and the farther away something is, the more colour gets basically filtered out. So we have like a very distant mountain, it's very sort of a greyish colour. Then something a little bit closer can become more bluey, and then as we get closer still, we start to see, if it was covered in grass or something, then you would see the actual colour. Now linear perspective, this is your classic railway tracks. Now we know that railway tracks are parallel, but if you stand on some railway tracks, and I wouldn't recommend it, but in this little world, if you stood on some railway tracks and looked into the distance, then you would see the railway tracks converging together to a point, and that point would be a vanishing point. So this kind of perspective is called linear perspective, and this, as architectural drawers or painters, any urban art, this is the type of perspective that we are interested in. We need to know perspective. If you're doing buildings and you're not sure about perspective, or you get the perspective wrong, then the building you're painting or drawing is going to look wrong. So it's pretty important. Now just for jollies, we know perspectively that this railway track is parallel, but because perspective plays a part in our world, it goes to a vanishing point. So just let's see, imagine a world without any perspective. What would these railway tracks look like in a world without perspective? Well, we know the parallel, so this would literally, you get the runners, the metal runners. We have one there, we'd have one there, and then you'd have the tracks, like so. Now it doesn't look like a railway track anymore, it looks like some step ladders. Same thing, exactly the same thing, with just perspective is not in play here. So this is why it's very important to at least understand what perspective is and how it works. Now when it comes to perspective, there are three kinds of perspective. There is 1 point perspective, 2 point perspective, and 3 point perspective. 1 and 2 point perspective is the perspective that you pretty much come across day after day when you're drawing. 3 point perspective, you may use it depending what you want to draw, but I've never really used it much at all. So we'll go through each type of perspective and how perspective actually works. So first off, we have 1 point. 1 point perspective. So we know we're going to draw a simple, just an outline of a house, a single house. So perspective, we always start with your horizon line. So your horizon line is basically your horizon. You would see. Now, when it comes to a horizon line, when you're outside, the horizon line is always at eye level. Now, it doesn't matter if you're standing up or laying down on your stomach, or even at the top of a large building or top of a cliff looking out. The horizon line is always at eye level. So we have our horizon line. Now, 1 point perspective just means the angles of the roof and the building converge down to 1 point. So say, i.e. your VP, your vanishing point. Now, when you look at a building and it's going away from us, every line will converge down into a vanishing point. And you can have 3 kinds. There are 2 more vanishing points, 2 more horizon lines, and 2 more vanishing points. Now, the first example, we're going to be looking at a bird's eye view of a building. So you're going to be flying over the top of it. The second example, we're going to be looking at vanishing at the perspective as of a building as if you were standing in the road looking at it. And the third, we're going to be looking at a worm's eye view. Our bird's eye view. To get a bird's eye view, we put our little square, our little side of our house, below the horizon line. We put our little roof on there, and then all we need to do to get our perspective is simply draw a line, converge it down to that vanishing point, converge that down to there, and the same there. Now we have a little house that's going down. This could be a lot of houses going down, but we only want one house, so we'll just do the other side of the house there, and then we will put the other side of the roof. We'll just make these lines a little bit and there we are. We're looking above the roof, a bird's eye view, but perspectively it is correct because the lines are converging to that vanishing point. Now the middle example, the second example, is going to be a view from if you was just standing in the street looking at the house. So it's a normal view. So in this occasion, you would have to put the square sort of halfway or whatever, but bisected across that vanishing point. The horizon line. We put our little roof on, and then once again, very simple, we just converge all the lines down to that vanishing point there. Put the other side of the building in, darken these lines up a little bit so we can see, and there we have a building that is basically, if you was just standing in the street, just a normal view. And then finally we have our worm's eye view. So for the worm's eye view, you're going to be looking up a bit more, so all we need to do here is put our at the side of our house on the horizon line itself. And then same thing, well, the bottom line is already going to the vanishing point. This goes down, and then this on the roof goes down to that point, like so. And then once again we just put the other end of the house in, the walls, make the lines a little bit darker so we can see, and like magic we now have a worm's eye view. Maybe so you were laying on your stomach and you're looking up. So that's 1 point perspective because we only have one vanishing point. Now the next example would be 2 point. Well, there you go, 2 point vanishing, 2 point perspective. Now once again I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 horizon lines, but this time because it's 2 point, now this is where you have like a 3/4 view of a house. So this time we will have 2 vanishing points, so we'll have a point there, point there. Well, we just do that for all three. That's why it's called 2 point. 1 point vanishing, 2 point. So for this we'll do the same thing. We'll do bird's eye view, but what we do here is, again, we do this. We're going to draw a line, one line, and that is basically it's this corner of the house. Yes. So we do one line there, and then we do the same thing as we join that line to that vanishing point, that line to that vanishing point, and then we do it to the left hand side also. So there we go. We'll just put our little roof there, connect that, and then this again just goes down to there. Put the other end of the house in, or the roof, or the wall, and there we have a 3/4 view going to our perspective points. Simple. The normal perspective view now, same thing. We'll draw our line like so, but again, like this, it's got to be within bisecting the horizon line, and then we just join that there, join that there, join that there, join that there, put that wall in, put that wall in. We put our roof in. Now that goes down to there, and then that goes up there like so. Make these a little bit easier to see. I should draw these in ink really, so they're easy to see, but there we go. We have a nice perspectively correct building. And then our final one is, of course, the worm's eye view. Now same again, we're going to draw our line like so, and then that point to there. This point is already going there, this point is already going there, and then we will draw that down there. Put the other sides of the house in, put the roof, this goes down like so, that goes up something like that. Let's make it a little bit stronger, the lines. Well, and there we have, we're on our bellies in the mud looking up at this building. So 2-point perspective. And finally we've got 3-point perspective. Now we're going to be looking at our 3-point, which is, I guess, for high-rise buildings, that sort of thing. So we're going to start with our horizon line once again, and then we're going to have an X or vanishing point there, and there, and we'll have a vanishing point there. So really you could be going to be getting a triangle. So what we need to do here is we're going to draw a line, because this is going to be, as in this example and this example, it's going to be as we're standing on the street. We're not going to be hovering above it or lying on our stomach. It's going to be standard, standard sort of perspectively correct view. So this is going to be this line here. So you have that there, and then all you do is really you put that line there, connect that, put that line there, connect it to there. So we've got, basically it's like a triangle, a pyramid. So then all we need to do is we'll have our top of the building about here. So the top of the building is going to come down to this perspective point. So we'll just do a line there, and we'll do a line, it's not exactly on it, so I want a funny angle here, there, and then we want our, just like we did this, we're going to put the width and the length of our building. So this is a skyscraper type, so we'll have that there, that there, so it's got to be more like a rectangle. So we have that there, and then all we need to do is to put that like that, put that down to where we want there. That will go up into that point there. So we have this strange shape. And it is a strange shape. It's quite a distorted shape because you're standing on the pavement, and you're sort of looking up at a very high building. And so yes, the bottom is going to be wider, and as perspectively it goes up, it's going to get narrower and narrower and narrower. Exactly like our train tracks. So that is 3 types of perspective. I don't use this one much at all, but 1-point, 2-point use all the time. And as you can see, it's quite a simple concept. But let's have a look at it in a more of like a real world situation with a real building. So we have a building here. You can see it is a 3/4 view, and it's going away from us to this general direction, and we can see that like the roof is going on an angle going down. On this side of the building, you can see, if you look at the eaves there and there, if you put a pencil down, you can see the angle this is going down. This will be going to that, and this angle will be going to a vanishing point somewhere. That's obviously off the paper, but they'll be going to a vanishing point. So let's just have a look at this. Now this is the same picture, it's just made smaller. So what we need a ruler, and we need to put our horizon line in. So this, obviously I took this photograph, I was just standing on the green, so I wasn't on my stomach and I wasn't floating above, so it's just going to be it's normal perspectively correct. So I was at eye level, the horizon, so the horizon was about here. So I shall put a line through there. That's our horizon line. So now we have to trace all of these lines that way and that way down to really our horizon level. So if you start with the left hand side, we can see the roof's going down. Now if you're looking in a photograph, it's easy because we can just put something on the roof so we can see what angle it is. If you're outside drawing this, then that's where you would have to hold your arm out straight, and then you would have to look close to one eye and then put your pencil or whatever, your brush, whatever, on the level of the roof. But of course your hand is coming out like this, and then carefully transfer it without moving this way or that way, but try to transfer it down onto your paper so you've got an idea of the angle, and then work it like that. But on a piece of paper in the studio it's much easier. So all we need to do here is to put our ruler on the roof and put a line down there. We do the same on this part of the roof. But put that there. And we'll do the same on the bottom of the or the base of the building. We'll go across here like so. So there's the angle, the perspective angles of the roof. But as you can see, even on this very small piece of paper, or this very small photograph, it's still going off the paper. So I suppose in this occasion the vanishing point maybe is about here, somewhere down there. So it's off the paper. You do the same with this. You go down, you'll get to the vanishing point. The same with that, the bottom of the roof, and you do the same with the chimney. This part of the chimney, it will go down. Just get the angle, go down, and it will end up at that vanishing point. This end, well, if we take that point there, then we can just put our ruler on those points and draw a line down, and there is our vanishing point there. Now if you could see the end of the bottom of this side of the building, but you can't because this is there, that would come down something like that. So you'd have the bottom of the building just like this, and then you would do the same with the angle of that. So you would come down, that angle is, well, we get that like so. If you just pull this down, lo and behold, it comes down to about the vanishing point. And you would do that with all of the angles going down. It would all come down to that vanishing point. And so if you do that, then everything works out. But this can be a little bit, especially for beginners, this can be a little bit complicated. And it does mean sort of drawing lines everywhere. So what I'm going to show you is a method that I use. I mean, when I draw this type of thing in the studio, I never do vanishing points. I don't think you need to. Why complicate things? So now what I'll do is I'm going to just draw out. It's not going to be a complete drawing. It's really, I think it's going to be just the outline, so you can see the box constructions of this building. But I'm going to use, again, I'm going to use the good old trusty proportional scale dividers because they are so handy to use for everything. And I get perspective correctly by using one of these when I'm in the studio doing something from a photograph. Now you've seen me do actual measurements, in the past, but we will have to do measurements again. So we'll get started. So what I'm going to do is what I've shown you before. I'm just going to make a simple measurement with the pointers using the center of our reference point, the cross. And this is 1:1, meaning the picture in the photograph and the picture on the paper, or what it will be the picture, is both 1:1. So no reduction, no enlargement. So I'm just making little simple measurements, as you can see, by a couple of little lines on the paper I'm drawing on. So I've got the length of the building now. Now for the bottom, we can see the bottom of the house is going in perspective to the left, going upwards. So I'm just drawing a little line on the base of this building just so I can see where to put the measurements a little bit easily. So now I'm going to take another measurement from that reference line down to that line I've just drawn on the base of the building. And I'm doing the same just to the top. Now that's a reference, that's a vanishing point now, a perspective point. That's important. And I'm doing another measurement from there down to the base. So that's another little reference point. So when we get these points, we just connect them, and then we go back to our left hand side of the building and make a measurement. Now I've already got the reference point at the top of the building, pretty much. So this is the bottom, so I'm just going to make a reference point there. Now we can see that reference point is a little bit higher than the one on the bottom right hand side of the building. So we just put a line, so there's both sides of the walls. And then all we need to do is to join one reference point to the other. And there we have our perspective. So now we have the 2 points at the top. All we need to do is to join them, and you'll see that we now have a perspectively correct building, or side of a building. Now if you look at the picture, we can see it's taller there, goes shorter as we go across because of perspective. Now just to show you, I'm going to actually put the perspective lines down upon this paper, so we can see that they would come down and they will go off just like we saw on the smaller photograph. So now we need to just find out where this roof goes. So I'm just going to make a mark, make a little mark there, and put a line up. So now we need to find out just how high that point or the corner of the roof is. So on that little vertical line we've just made, I'll just put a mark, and there again, that's one of our perspective points at the top of that roof. Now we do the same, exactly the same, with the right hand side of the roof. We need this point here. So just make a mark down so I know how far it is away from the corner of that building. Open the divider, and we'll just make a little mark off the corner of that there, and we'll just put a line upwards so we know it's the same width. and now make it a small actual measurement, put it on that line, make our mark there, our little X. That's again our perspective point. So we can now just add those lines together, and we've got that. And more importantly, we've got the two perspective points on the top of the roof. So we just now get our ruler and copy them, or put a line between the two. And there we go. We can see it going down perspectively to what our vanishing point would be off the paper. So everything is working. There we can see by looking at the photograph that the perspective is correct. But now we need the right hand side of this building. So I need to get the just under the eaves on the right hand side of the building. So I'm just going to get the marks, make a little mark there. Now that is the width of the building. Now I need to find out just how far underneath that line it is, which you make a little mark just there, and we need to get this part here. So I've got a little mark there just of where this would be. Again, put our mark there so we know about where it's going to go. We just make a mark. Now that gives us an idea of where it is. But right now we can see that the actual bit of building there is shorter than the top of the building because the chimney pot's in the way. So now we've got to mark this building up using the proportional scale dividers. It's easy. There we go. There's our mark. And we need to find out the width of that part. So I'm just going to get another mark, just like I've always done, put a little line, and then we'll just use to get the measurement of the height, put it on that line I've just made, and there we go. There's our little point, important little point. So we can now just join that point to that point, and we have our perspective for that part of the building. And we've got a point between the top and the point to the bottom. So again, we just need to join the points like so, and we find out that perspectively that is correct. That part is the perspective we need. That part there and that part there has got to be correct. So I'm just going to lay my pencil across there, put it onto the paper, and lo and behold, it's perfect. So I'll just draw a little line for this side of the wall. And now we just get the chimney pot. This is an easy one. It's just a rectangle. Now we look at that point there, the angle, and we can just draw a comparable angle on the top of the chimney pot. Now this part, the right hand side of the chimney pot, has to go down at a considerable angle. It's got to be down the same as that angle there. So I'm just making a little mark, a line down which would show where the vanishing point is. And the top of the chimney pot on the right hand side will have to match that vanishing point. So I'm just going to make a little mark. And so we've got one end of the chimney pot higher than the other, and that's going to be our perspective. And that is the same as that. Now if I put the ruler on the chimney and I draw a line down, we find out that it actually goes to the vanishing point. So the perspective is absolutely correct. I'll do that again because it was off the shot. So there's our vanishing point, and the top of the chimney has to go down to this vanishing point. And as you can see, it does perfectly. So just by using our scale divider, we can make little points and get perfect perspective. Now, just to finish it off, I'm not going to do the whole building. I'll just do the windows. So first off, we just need to find out where the windows are located in the face of this building. So I'm just making a mark by our center point measurement, and just making some little marks. This is where the windows would be. So all we need to do now is get the height of the top of this window. This is a perspective point there. So we've got two perspective points, that one for the last window and the first window we did. And then all we need to do is to join them up, because the top of the windows, because they're all level, are all going to follow this point. And then you do exactly the same for the bottom of the window. So all we need to do is to measure the window. There's our perspective point. We do for the last window. Just making sure, put our perspective point. So we've got a point there and a point there. And then we just get the ruler, join them up, and then complete the middle bits in to complete the windows. And then you'll find, doing it this way, that all the windows are going away from us perspectively. And you can see, just if you put lines, perspective lines going through, you can see that they're converging, which would be to the vanishing point off the page. And it's literally that simple. I'm not going to finish the complete building because I think I've shown how I do the perspective using one of these things, a proportional scale divider, and not having to do all lines beforehand to get the perspective going down. Because I've just shown these lines just to show you that when you're doing the measurements with the little dots or X's or whatever you need to do with one of these, if you put a measurement there, and then just join the two dots together, if you continue down, it would all go down to a vanishing point, as we saw on this. The angle of just under the eaves there goes down. This, the angle of the top of the chimney pot. Also, it's quite an extreme angle, but if you follow it down, we saw that it went down to a vanishing point. So everything works. And if I did the rest of the building, and this, would exactly the same technique, and everything would work. So if If you find that doing all the lines and beforehand is a little bit confusing, then simply use the proportional scale divider, do your measuring as you would normally to scale it up or scale it down, depends how large or small you want your drawing. But also at the same time you can get your points to get perfect perspective. And there we have it. Perspective explained. Now overall, technically it's not that difficult once you get your head around it. But as you've seen, as I've shown, if you're doing anything in the studio, then you could use the method I've just shown you, which I always use, because it's just so much easier and you don't have to draw lines everywhere on your paper. It's just a lot less hassle, in my opinion. But why don't you give it a go? Get something and a photograph of the building, something simple, a nice 3/4 view, and then just draw it out as it's just the base of the building. Look at that, a square or a rectangle with some sort of shape on the top of for a roof. We don't have to bother about windows. We're just trying to get the overall perspective as it goes down in the two points for the vanishing points, and see how you get on. It's not that difficult. Now I've got a favour to ask, of course, that if you enjoyed this and you would like to see more, then if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I'd like to hear your views, so please put a comment in the comments box. And as ever, I'll see you next time. So until then, goodbye.